Welcome to Grove Bites. I'm Richard Steele. Our guest today is Nick Moore, MA Director and Tutor at Cranmer Hall, St John's College, Durham. He's the author of the Grove book, The Christian Life in Hebrews. Grove Bites presenter Steve Morris talked to Nick about his book and one of the less well-known and certainly less well preached on letters of the New Testament. Nick himself describes Hebrews as like Marmite, concentrated and strong stuff. Now, describing something as Marmite suggests people either love it or hate it. Steve suggested, to use another idiom, that in being asked to write this book, he'd been given rather a poisoned chalice. Nick agreed that, yes, there was quite a lot that might not be to every modern reader's taste.
The kind of language, the concepts it's keying into, priesthood and sacrifice, these are all very alien to us in contemporary Western world, certainly. For some people, it might simply be that it's untrodden territory, so we don't, people have never been there because it doesn't come up that often in our lectionary readings for those churches that use lectionaries, or it just kind of drops off the end. We forget about it. We do loads on Paul, we do loads on the Gospels, but like a lot of the Old Testament, Hebrews just kind of drops off. So those might be reasons that people don't spend so much time in Hebrews.
So what do you think? Why is it worth us thinking about it again, maybe, and giving some time to it?
Mm-hmm. I think Hebrews is a book that's hugely relevant to the contemporary age. I mean, I think it's a book that treats some themes that are absolutely central and fundamental to Christian faith. It's a book that's really excited about Jesus. Jesus is at the center. Jesus is the most important one. And the concern of Hebrews is to point us to Jesus, to encourage us to keep going with him. I think in terms of why it might be relevant for us today, Hebrews speaks to a situation where the audience originally were facing tough times. They seemed to be facing some form of persecution. There was outward pressure, but they were also facing doubt, and they were in danger of falling away in their faith. And those two things combined were pressures that I think we can very much identify with today, wherever we find ourselves in, whatever setting. I think people recognise those and relate to them. So in that sense, it keys right into the contemporary age. It actually keys right into a time like this global pandemic, because we hear a lot of talk, both in the church and in secular discourse, about the need for perseverance, about what hope might be like. Those are big themes in Hebrews. And the ultimate response that Hebrews gives to those kind of challenges of the danger of falling away, the temptation of giving up, pressure from outside, feeling sluggish in your faith inside yourself. The basic answer it gives is to paint us an even bigger picture of Jesus. We say, this is what Jesus is like. He is so big. He's so great. He has traveled this path before you. He's made a definitive and lasting and effective atoning sacrifice for you. So it points you to those things as a way of encouraging you to keep on keeping on.
Thank you. I mean, I suppose the one thing that I wrestle with, and I was very interested that you wrestle with it as well in your booklet, is the warnings, which seem to be that if you fall away, you've had it, really. And I think you mentioned that it's a kind of strategy in a way, to help people, to warn them. But I suppose my mind is it's a flawed strategy, because it's never worked for anyone who's ever lived has never ever been scared into faith. It's utterly an impossible strategy. It's like those things when if you're in the army, you're about to be overrun by the enemy, and if you retreat, you get shot by your own side. It's never going to be a long-term strategy. So I suppose I'm very uncomfortable with that stuff, and I'm just tempted to ignore it. But maybe I should take more time and not ignore it.
Yes, so that would be another thing that I could have mentioned at the outset when we talked about reasons people are perhaps afraid of Hebrews or turned off Hebrews, would be these 5 warning passages that come periodically through the letter, and that say some pretty stark things about, sort of grave sin that is the same as trampling the Son of God or spurning the Spirit of grace. And that say very stark things along the lines of, it's impossible to come back if you pass a certain point. Now, as you've said, those are warnings. They're not a kind of analysis of what has happened to Hebrews' audience. They are warnings about what might happen if they carried on down a certain path. And the point of warning, like a lot of speech, is that it's performative. You do it in order to get somebody to do something, and in this case, the opposite of what your kind of warning is a possibility. So that's the sort of performative aspect, just as there's all kinds of other performative speech. Like, for example, I now proclaim you husband and wife would be performative speech in a wedding service. So that was part of the argument that I was making. You're saying to me that still doesn't feel very effective. I mean, I guess I'd say one thing is this is addressed to those who are already part of the faith community. So it's actually it's for those who are Christians. So it's not trying to scare people into faith. It's addressed to those who already stand in that position. I think another thing to say would be that a warning is a flip side of an encouragement. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. So Hebrews is full of encouragements to keep going. And actually, every time you find a warning in Hebrews, you'll find it lands in an encouragement, which is really good pastoral strategy. I think it's something we could learn from that. And I think as well, one of the helpful things to note about these, I've said that they don't, in Hebrews, describe something that's actually happened. They warn that this is a possibility that could come about, but they don't give us criteria for judging exactly how or when it's come about. So they're not kind of handing us as individual Christians or as the church the tools to sort of definitively declare about what somebody else's fate is or might be. So I think in those ways we can begin to understand the value and the use of these warnings, and perhaps hopefully not be so scared of them, but instead be spurred on by them, which is the point.
Well, I mean, thank you. I think it's actually more to do with the personality of the reader. It would never work for me. It just literally would never work. So that's just me, and there are other people like me. So I just have to accept that, I once did an interview with Ray Clements about Bill Shankly, the greatest ever Liverpool manager, I would say. And Shankly's technique in the dressing room was to know the people who needed an arm around them, and those needed, what he said, a kick up the backside. And for those who needed an arm around their shoulder, there was never a kick up the backside. And I suppose that's where I'm still wrestling, I'm afraid, Nick. We can disagree on that one agreeably, can't we? I want to ask you one final question. I'm one of those kind of, when I used to buy records, I'd always read all the details about where it was recorded and everything. And I'm very interested in this book, your little bit at the beginning where you thank people. I always read that because I'm quite interested. And you say that this is the one book you've actually been clear in. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it, but you've written it in ordinary language. It's a passion of mine, clarity, because I think intelligence and clarity go together. Do you think writing this Grove booklet will change the way you write your other stuff?
That's a great question. I found this a really helpful exercise because I've written a book on Hebrews. I've written various sort of scholarly articles on Hebrews, and as you allude to, I sort of say my parents and my wife have been bugging me to write something that ordinary people can read and enjoy. So this was for them in that sense. But actually, it was immensely valuable for me because when I'm writing at a scholarly level, I'm often focusing in on a point of really great detail. And that just is a very different kind of writing. Whereas here, I was able to take a step back. I did it at the same time as a module that I was teaching, which took Hebrews as its main text, and actually, in a sense, say what it is that I think about the book as a whole. And that was really valuable for me. I trust it's valuable for others, and it's come more clear. And I think, yes, as I go forward, I mean, I always hope to be clear. I'm passionate about clear and good writing, just like you are. I hope that will indeed carry forward into everything I write in the future.
It's been an utter pleasure speaking with you, and I must say to people who are listening and watching, it is a cracking read. It is really, really genuinely interesting, and if you haven't really dipped into some of the Bible parts of the Bible elements of the Grove offering, I really recommend you do, because it actually, I'm a vicar, it's really helped me, and I thought, well, I'm going to go and preach on this. I'm going to go and talk about this when we all come back. So, you have my thanks and admiration. It's really good. Thank you.
Steve, thanks very much.
If, like Steve, that interview has whetted your appetite for a new look at the letter to the Hebrews, go to the Grove Books website, where you can order The Christian Life in Hebrews as a print copy with free postage or as a PDF. There are many more great Grove books applying the Bible to a wide variety of situations. They're written by authors who know what they're writing about. Grove books are bite-sized publications that you can really get your teeth into. Goodbye for now. Hope to see you again soon.